All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the College Make It Happen webinar. We are going to have a lot of information packed into a short time for you. I'm Carla Whitaker. I'm here from Cal Soap. And just a few details before I start sharing my screen. Although you might not have access to the chat, there should be a Q&A prompt at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you click on Q&A, you're able to ask questions there. So if you do have any questions, even though you can't ask them out loud, you can type them into the Q&A. And I have a UC San Diego student here, Brianna is her name, and she's going to be monitoring the Q&A for me. She's going to type answers to your questions when she can, and she'll also put links in the chat for you. But if she can't answer something, she'll unmute herself and ask me to pause the slide deck and I will go ahead and try to address it in real time. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. When I'm sharing slides, I'm not always able to see the Q&A myself. So Brianna is the one who's going to be monitoring it for me, but let me go ahead and get started. Okay. All right, so this is all about what you can do now in the as a middle school student or a middle school parent, what to know about what's coming up for high school and for college and how to get ready. And we'll start with a little CMIH, just a short video with some music to get us in the college mood.
Choose college. We'll tell you all you need to know. Work hard and get some knowledge. Go anywhere you want to go. Do you want to choose college? We'll tell you all you need to know. Work hard and get some knowledge. Go anywhere you want to go.
Listen up. You can do it, you can do it. Make it happen, push through it. You can do it, you can do it. Stay on track, work hard, keep moving. You can do it, you can do it. Make it happen, push through it. You can do it. That GPA, don't play, get to it,
I am Molly, the megaphone. I'm here to help y'all get your college on. Like CMIH, college, make it happen, babe. So many campuses to choose from. I'm here to help you find the right one. CMIH, college, make it happen, be great. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's easy to remember, can you listen to see? So let's learn the letters of A through G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's easy to remember, can you listen to see? So let's learn the letters of A through G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Scholarships, grants, loans. I heard there's some money going on. I heard there's some money going on. I heard there's some money going fast for what you want. Heard you helping me get books for the low. What I gotta do, please let me know. Cause I heard there's some money going on.
I'll lead a megaphone and I'm here with Kevin.
And it's Super Coach.
Make it happen. Let us know your goals. 3, 2, 1. Ready, set, go. Make it happen. Potential. You got a lot and we wanna see you grow. Make it happen. Knowledge. We wanna get you in college. Make it happen. Make it happen. Make it happen. Let us know your goals. 3, 2, 1. Ready, set, go. Make it happen. Potential. You got a lot and we wanna see you grow. Make it happen. Knowledge. We wanna get you in college. Make it happen. Make it happen. Yeah.
All right. So there's actually a lot of the information I'm going to be referring to. You can access in the virtual CMIH workbook. That's available both at the link that we will put in the chat, but also there's an app you can download for your phone. So if you have an iPhone or an Android, go to your app store, look up CMIH for College Make It Happen, and you could actually download the digital workbook and get access to a lot of this information there if you'd like. We are CalSOAP, the California Student Opportunity and Access Program. There's many CalSOAPs throughout the state of California. Ours is the San Diego and Imperial Counties one. Everything we do is to try to get students and families knowledgeable about the steps after high school and get ready for college and financial aid. So one of the best ways to keep in touch with us and find out all of the opportunities that we offer, whether it's college fairs, cash for college workshops, scholarship seminars, webinars like this, anything, would be to follow us on social media if you do. If you don't, we also have a website, calsoapsandiego.org. But if you're on Twitter or Facebook, you can follow us at San Diego CalSOAP. Or if you're on Instagram, you can follow us at CalSOAP San Diego. But we definitely encourage you to do that. So the first thing I want to ask is, what words do you think of when you hear college? Sometimes students say things like hard or tests or degree or job, things like that. And a lot of times parents say words like debt and loans and, cost of college. And so there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with the wonderfulness of also that is college. So just a real simple explanation is college is school that can prepare you for your future job and career. Unlike in the lower levels where your classes are mostly being chosen for you, in college, you choose your classes and you choose your major. So yes, there's going to be certain prerequisites, there's going to be certain general education requirements, but in college, you're the one who chooses your classes and you're the one who chooses your major. So this sometimes brings me to the immediate question of what is a major, because sometimes students in middle school might or might not know. Basically, a major is the specific subject that you take the most college classes in while you're working on your undergraduate degree. So what is an example of a major? Engineering is a popular major. Business is another. Biology, English, psychology, linguistics, history, communication, computer science, visual and performing arts, education, like if you wanted to become a teacher, those are all examples of majors. So the major is something that when you are applying to college, you are choosing what major you want to go in under, but you can't always change your mind once you get there. A lot of times college students will still be changing their mind up until their junior and senior year of college. So money is not the only reason to go to college, but it is one reason that is very important to a lot of people. So I wanted to show you the numbers. This is on average. What is the potential for your lifetime earnings, depending on how much education you have? So these are averages. They're not guarantees. They're not minimums, they're not maximums, but they do give you an idea of, okay, well, the average person with this much education will tend to make this much money. The average person with that much education will tend to make this much money. So I just want you to see really clearly, if you don't graduate from high school over the course of your life, you're likely to make about $1 million, which doesn't sound bad. I guess technically that would make you a millionaire. But you have to remember that that's spread out over 40 or 50 years of work, and that, of course, inflation happens as well, as we are experiencing right now in this current economy. So if you simply make the step of graduating from high school, already your average earnings are probably up to more like 1.3 million. If you get a little bit of college in, again, you can see that number rise again. If you get as high as a bachelor's degree, sometimes called a 4-year degree, because that's the average amount of time it takes to get one, look how we're already up to over $2.2 million. And then if you had to go further, like for perhaps you wanted to be a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, something that required additional education, like a master's degree or a doctoral degree, now you're up in the $2 and $3+ million over the course of your lifetime. So again, these are just averages, but the statistics don't lie. It does tell you, your earning potential. And another thing to think about, it's not just about the job and it's not just about money that you can earn later on. College can also be a lot of fun. And it's a place where I guarantee if you go to college, you will learn and you will grow. There are sports that either you can play or attend games. There are usually opportunities to study abroad, like to travel to other countries, and your financial aid would cover you for a quarter or a semester to study in another country, and those units still count toward your degree. It's a place to make friendships, connections, network with others. A lot of times you make friends you might have for the rest of your life. Also, colleges will always have clubs, leadership, community service opportunities, job and internship opportunities. It's a great place to find mentors. And there's also a lot of benefits and services that are offered to college students. You have a student health center if you feel ill. You have career services that can help you with a job in college or after college. And they also help with things like resume building and interview skills. There are centers by identity, like for example, a Mecha club or a Black student union or an LGBTQ club. And also college students get special discounts to things like movies, restaurants, concerts, shows, technology like Apple, or special Amazon Prime student memberships that are a much lower cost. So there are some fun little benefits to college. And Brianna, I'm just gonna pause there, see if there's any questions in the Q&A.
None that I can see, no.
Okay, all right. If you do have questions, everybody, please don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A and we will try to get them answered. So as you're thinking about your future, there's a combination of Japanese words. Iki means life and gai means worth. So students, if you're a student on this webinar right now, kind of think about what makes your life worth living? Like, what is your life's purpose? What reasons do you have for getting out of bed each day? This is a good way to kind of choose, what do I want to do in my future, in my job, in my career? So Ikigai, your life's worth, kind of comes together with all these different questions. I know that for some people, it's going to be really important. Well, what can I be paid for? But you don't just want to be paid for a career. Hopefully you want it to be something that you love, and hopefully something that you are good at or that you learn to be good at. And then also, what does the world need? If you're only hitting one or two of these categories, it might not be the best scenario for you. But if you can think of something that you love, that you're good at, that the world needs, and that you can be paid for, now you start coming up with ideas for a career. Now, sometimes people say, I know what I love, but what career does that equal? Like, I love working with animals, or I'm passionate about the environment, or I love music, or I love data and robots, whatever it is. How do you find a job in that field? If you go to cacareerzone.org, and this is something we can pop that in the chat as well, but it's for California Career Zone, and they have so many great easy quizzes that you can take to profile your interests, to figure out your jobs, to figure out your career fields, and then a lot of information about those. So if you're trying to figure out, I know what I love, but what career does that equal? I really recommend the website California Career Zone. And if you're interested in staying specifically in San Diego, there's a great website called the Workforce Partnership that will give you information about the specific industries and jobs available in San Diego. If you're starting to research different jobs just for fun and figure out, okay, what is this job about? The two main things you always want to look at is, how much education does that job take? And what is the average salary I would make? So say, for example, I wanted to be an engineer, maybe a civil engineer, a biomedical engineer, a software engineer, a structural engineer, could be anything. Well, I would need at least a bachelor's degree to be an engineer. And my average salary, depending on where I lived in the country and what kind of engineer I was, could be somewhere between $60,000 and $120,000 a year. So whatever you're looking up, post-secondary teacher, K-12 teacher, accountant, nurse, counselor, social worker, physical therapist, physician, lawyer, whatever it is you're interested in, start with those two things. How much education would I need? And what is the average salary I could make? That's really important information that a lot of people want to start off with. So these are some of the priority sectors in San Diego specifically. We have industry in manufacturing, education, energy and construction, healthcare, information technology, life sciences, biotech, and public administration. Those are some of the popular ones. And again, the Workforce Partnership website is really, really helpful if you want to see, especially the industries and jobs that are here in San Diego. All right, so let's start getting into what should you know to prepare for college. If you're a student, so if you're a student in maybe grade 6, 7, or 8, what can you do now, right? It's not time to get a job yet. So what can you do now? For now, study hard, do your best in school, fall in love with reading and do more than the minimum. So if you learn to love reading, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the things you're assigned in school, but if you fall in love with reading, that's going to be one of the most important skills you'll use in college, in life, in a career, in a job, all the time. Try to be an active participant. I know sometimes you might be shy, but ask questions or email questions or message questions to teachers and helpers. Seek help if you need it. Be your own advocate and ask questions about college. So when you become that person that says, I'm so interested in UCLA, or I'm so interested in Grossmont College, or whatever it is, your teachers and counselors and peers, they start to think of you as someone, oh, if I hear of an opportunity at that college or in that job or at an internship, I'm going to keep this student in mind. Surround yourself with people invested in your success. Look ahead, remember your future is coming. And also now's a good time to start planning which classes you want to take in high school. I know some of them, everyone's going to have to take math, everyone's going to have to take English, maybe a language other than English and some type of history or social science. But when you're taking elective courses, figure out which ones are you interested in. Like, are you someone who's interested in theater, band, shop, like what is offered and what are you interested in? Maybe computer technology. Okay. And parents, it's a great idea to have college talks with your kids in a non-judgmental way, and also in a way that lets them know it's okay to change their mind. Maybe in 7th grade, they want to be a marine biologist, and then in 8th grade, they want to be a college professor, and then in 9th grade, they want to be a heavy equipment operator, and then in 10th grade, they want to be a doctor. You don't know, they're allowed to change their minds, but it's a good idea to just check in every year or so and ask things like, where do you want to go to college? Like, are you interested in certain campuses or certain cities or states, and why? And what careers are you interested in? Or ask your kids, what are your strongest or weakest subjects in school? Not that they have to pursue something they're strong in necessarily, but maybe something they're at least passionate about. So those are good talks to have with students. Of course, education, we love our acronyms. We have GPA, we have AP and IB, we have A through G and SAT. So here's a little breakdown about what some of those mean. And this is a good time also, if you do have questions, Brianna is able to either answer you or unmute herself and ask me. So if you have questions about these things, please let me know. But I'm going to start with GPA. Your GPA is your grade point average. Colleges, when they're evaluating your application, they'll ask for the students either weighted or unweighted GPA. Normally, a GPA goes from 0 to 4 points. However, some students get like a 4.3. How is that possible? How can you get higher than straight A's? Well, the answer is in the next bullet, which is advanced placement. So if a student takes an advanced placement class while they're in high school, or if they take a college class, like a community college class, while in high school, and they're getting high school credit or dual credit for it, they actually get an extra bump in their GPA. So normally an A is 4, a B is 3, a C is 2, etc. Well, if in an AP class, an A is 5 points, a B is 4 points, a C is 3 points. However, you don't get an extra point for a D or an F. But some of the advantages of taking advanced placement courses once you're in high school would be 2 things. There is an exam associated with the class in May. If you decide to take the exam, it's optional, but if you decide to take it and you pass, most colleges will award you college credit on your college transcript. So you're actually already getting units before you even technically start at that college. The other benefit, regardless of whether or not you take the AP exam, is that when you're getting that certain grade, like an A, B, or C in an AP course in high school, that gives the students an extra point in their high school calculated GPA. So that GPA that colleges want to see when they're deciding whether to let you in, that can be higher than a 4.0 if you're taking AP courses and getting A's in them. All right. A through G, we'll quickly go through those. That's just the number of years you have to take different types of subjects. And most of you are already in that pattern automatically, especially if you're in the San Diego Unified School District. I do want to mention the SAT and ACT, which some of us older folks might remember from a long time ago. That used to be required by nearly every university in the country, but especially with the pandemic in the last few years, many universities, I would say most universities, have gone test optional or test blind, which means if they're test blind, it means they don't even look at that score to consider you for admission. It's not part of their admissions decision at all. All the UCs have gone test blind, all the CSUs have gone test blind, and community colleges have remained test blind. And in California, as far as private colleges, there are no colleges in California, public or private, that require an SAT or ACT score. There are some that either recommend or will consider it. Okay, but a lot of them have gone test blind and test optional. As far as, are there any colleges in the country that still require the SAT? There are a few, and I believe one of them, like for example, is Georgia Tech, University of Florida. There's kind of a cluster in the Southeast in Florida and Georgia where there's a few colleges that still require an SAT score on your college application. But almost every other university, they've gone test optional or test blind.
Carla, we have a question in the chat. Someone is asking if universities generally treat international baccalaureate classes similar to AP courses. Could you try to speak to this, please?
Yes, they do. If you are in a school, whether it's international or, like, for example, San Diego High would be another one, that offers international baccalaureate courses or an AP IB combo course, yes, they treat that very much the same way they would treat an advanced placement class. They would probably give you an extra GPA bump if it was considered like an honors approved course. And so, yes, if you're taking any IB classes or any IB tests, if you're taking theory of knowledge, whatever it is, they do consider that a good thing, and they do treat it much the same way they would treat an AP class in the USA. Yes. All right. So when you turn in a college application, this is like usually your 12th grade year, which GPA do colleges use? Well, every college is different. It can vary. Some will ask for weighted, some will ask for unweighted. Because we're in California, I'm going to tell you what the UCs and the CSUs ask for, because that's representing, I think, like 33 different universities right there, but they all have the same GPA that they will ask for. The GPA that they're going to look at is based only on classes that you took in grades 10 and 11. Okay, they are going to look at the classes you took as a freshman, but as far as your GPA calculation, that number, it's going to be based on classes you took in 10th grade and 11th grade. That's it. They do use weighted, so they do give you extra points for approved honors and AP classes, up to 8 extra points. They will not look at PE. So even if you're getting A's in PE, good for you, but unfortunately, that's not going to be calculated in your GPA that a college looks at. Also, it's only going to be based on A through G courses. And if you get any D's or F's in any classes, that will typically disqualify you. If it's an A through G class, that D or F will disqualify you from being accepted to those universities. Some of them are very competitive, so D's and F's are not acceptable to them. Now, for those of you that said, wait a minute, they're not looking at my 9th grade grades, they're not looking at my 12th grade grades, that's not completely true, because you do still, again, have to not get any D's and not get any F's, and that includes 9th grade and that includes 12th grade. Maybe if you stumbled a little bit your 9th grade year, but you improved in your sophomore and junior year of high school, that could be okay because it shows improvement. What you don't want to do is the opposite, where your grade point average slips down. And the other thing to remember about 12th grade is, even though you're applying, if you're applying to a university, usually those applications are due in the fall, like by November 30th. And so your semester grades aren't out yet. But if you're accepted to a university and then your GPA really falls your senior year, the college can rescind or take back that acceptance. They can say, wait a minute, we admitted you when you had a 4.2. Now you have a 3.6. That's just too big of a slip for us. And so they are allowed to take back an acceptance if your GPA drops dramatically. So when I'm talking about the A through G classes, what are they? Basically, it is 2 years of history, 4 years of English, 3 to 4 years of math, 2 to 3 years of science, 2 to 3 years of a language other than English, 1 year of visual and performing arts, and 1 year of an elective. It could be chosen from above there, or it could be something like psychology or anything else. So if you go to the ucop.edu guide, you can actually look up your middle school and your high school and a school year and figure out, you know, does this count as area A or area D? And these are mostly classes that you're taking in high school. However, the 2 exceptions are they will look back as far as middle school for 2 subjects. They'll look back as far as middle school for math and language other than English. So let's say you're in 8th grade and you're taking integrated 1 or algebra 1. They will actually look back at that class and the grade you got in it in 8th grade, and the same for a language other than English. So say you're taking Spanish 1-2 your 8th grade year. They will look back at that Spanish 1-2 in 8th grade. Everything else, they have to wait till high school. English, history, that waits till high school. Science, wait till high school. Arts, elective, that all waits. But they will look back as far as middle school for language other than English and math. All right. And think of it as colleges are looking at 2 different factors. GPA is one thing. That's that number on that 0 to 4 plus scale. Okay, and it's mostly based on 10th and 11th grade grades. A through G classes, they're looking at everything you took in grades 9, 10, 11, and 12, except for PE. They even look back at middle school for math and a language other than English. And it's balanced by how many courses your high school offers. So if you're at a high school that doesn't offer AP classes or doesn't offer as many, they only compare your application to other 12th grade students coming from that high school, not to everybody else in the state that might have had access to more or fewer classes. So you're only being compared to other students that had the same number of AP courses offered at their school. All right, yes, times are changing. That's always true. I'm going to skip over that. Let's talk about the different degrees. So sometimes when people think college, they think college is a place you go away and you live on campus, and college is 4 years. Really, that's not true at all. College is any kind of training or education that you have after high school, whether it's 1 year, whether it's 6 months, 2 years, 4 years. If you want to be a doctor, it might be another 10 plus years after high school. All of that counts as college. The FAFSA form, the free application for federal student aid, counts for all of those different types of schooling. And it doesn't matter if it's vocational, it doesn't matter if it's academic, it doesn't matter, it's all college. And there's no such thing as the right type of college, really, or a good or bad college. It's more like, what college is right for you? What degree is right for you? What career are you interested in, and how much education are you going to need for that career? I like to use this as an example because it's one that sometimes students don't think of as a career, but when you go get your blood drawn, like if you donate blood or if you're in the doctor's office and they have to take blood, there's someone called a phlebotomist. That person is trained specifically in how to do that. That's their whole job. And I asked my phlebotomist the last time I was donating blood, hey, how long did you have to train to do this? And she said it was less than a year. And she said, and now I'm in a career that I like. I think I'll be doing this for a long time. I have good benefits. I'm really happy with that. And so the college that she had to attend required less than a year's time. So kind of consider that there's lots of different kinds of careers and lots of different kinds of degrees that might match that career. Say you wanted to be an administrative assistant in an office. Say you wanted to get into automotive repair, culinary arts, fire academy, veterinary technology. You might only need 1 to 2 years or up to like an associate's degree for that type of career. Maybe you want to be if you don't want to go to school all the way to become a dentist, but you would like to work in the dental field, you can become a dental hygienist, usually in as few as 2 years. Again, if you don't want to go all the way through a bachelor's and law school and take the bar and become an attorney, but you want to work in a legal environment, you could become a paralegal. You could become an accountant. For a bachelor's degree, or sometimes called a 4-year degree, that would be appropriate for, like, say, for example, a manager, a marketing manager, an engineer, many other jobs as well. There are some careers that take higher than that. So you might need to go as high as a master's level. Say, for example, if you want to be a school counselor, a K-12, get a K-12 teaching credential, become an occupational or physical therapist, you're going to need some kind of, it could be either a master's or some type of credential or certification past a bachelor's degree. To become something like a lawyer, you would need to go to law school to get your master's in law, and that's an additional 3 years after your bachelor's. If you wanted to go all the way and become something like a medical doctor, a veterinarian, an OBGYN, a surgeon, a pediatrician, that's going to require, after your bachelor's, you can skip the master's, but you do need 4 years of medical school. And then beyond that, you have to do internship and residency in your specialty. And so that takes additional years after that. There's no such thing as a good or a bad job. It's like, what's a good or bad job for you? What career are you interested in? Now, depending on the career you're interested in, they might have very specific requirements for how much education you need. And sometimes the ones that have more earning potential, like a doctor, they're also going to cost the most in college, and because it's going to take you the longest to get through. Another thing I wanted to point out about a bachelor's degree is that there's 2 different ways to get one in the same amount of time. You can start at a 4-year university as a freshman and go your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year of college and get a bachelor's degree. That usually takes about 4 years. Another option you could do the same thing is you can start at a community college, take 2 years, your freshman and sophomore years at a community college, and then apply to transfer and finish your junior and senior year at a university. At the end of those, say, 4 years, you would get the exact same bachelor's degree in the end. So what are the benefits and drawbacks of doing it at a university versus doing it at a community college and transferring? We'll get into that in a little bit. But again, you are going to get the same degree in the end. Sometimes there's just a better fit because of where you are in life, or where you are in choosing what you want to study, or where you are in the finances or whatever. So we'll get into that in just a sec.
Carla, there's a few questions.
Okay.
I think you're better suited to them. One of them is, if I got a D in a language other than English in the 7th grade immersion, so it is a high school level course, do I already not meet the A through G requirements?
So there is something called validation, which with a language other than English, say for example, and this is just a random example, but say that you failed Spanish 1-2, like you got a D in Spanish 1-2, but then you got a C or higher in Spanish 3-4. That higher level means you would have had to understand and master the lower level material in order to get the higher grade at the higher level. So there are certain things, certain kinds of math and language other than English, where if you take the next level up and get a C or higher, it will kind of, if you want to say, wipe out the lower grade that is less. So I think you would actually be okay if you got a D in something in 7th grade. That would be okay, as long you'd still get your A through G requirements in, as long as you took the next level up class and got a C or higher in that.
There's another question. They said, my kid has been in a foreign language immersion program since kindergarten, so their 8th grade foreign language class is pretty advanced. In that case, would college still look at their 8th or 9th grade grades?
They will look at the grades, but they will not use those grades in a GPA calculation. So they'll be able to see the grades as reported, but when they're using an actual number, like what is this student's GPA, it's only going to be based on the 10th and 11th grade grades that were earned. So yes, they can see the prior grades, but they will not calculate it into the GPA. If it's like a UC or a CSU or most privates, they're really just focused on the 10th and 11th grade A through G courses and what grades you got in those.
Another question is there a place you can find out how many AP classes a particular high school in the district offers?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm going to say to go to sandy.net, SANDI.net. That's the San Diego Unified School District main website. And there might be something there. I don't know, however, if they have a search feature that lets you search like AP classes by high school name. I haven't seen that feature. You might have to just go to the websites of the different high schools you're considering going to and finding out. If you go to their website, it should then show there which AP courses are offered. But as far as like one convenient website where you can search that, like which AP courses are offered at which school in the district, I'm not personally familiar with a site like that. But I would start at sandy.net. That would be a good place to start.
And someone else asked if you could talk about LOTE testing.
Okay, so with language other than English, one way to get the credit for that, as far as A through G credit, is to actually take the class, like to take Spanish 1, French 1, ASL 1 and 2, 3 and 4, whatever. That's one way to do it. However, some people are already proficient in another language. Perhaps they grew up speaking Spanish, speaking Korean, speaking whatever other language in their home, and they're extremely fluent in that language. There's actually ways that you can take a test instead, and it could be a number actually of different tests. There are ones that are offered by the district. There is AP testing that if you get a certain score, like an AP level testing, there's actually a way that a high school principal, if they can certify you in that other language, that they can write a letter on your behalf saying this student is proficient. They don't actually have to take all these language other than English classes because they are already proficient in this language, and that is proven by, whatever testing. I would check with the school counselor to see what kind of testing they either offer or accept there, but check with your middle school and high school counselors on that to get information, because yes, there is a way to, if you want to say, get out of taking those classes, which is if you're already fluent and proficient in them.
There's just one more question in the chat right now. Someone asked, sometimes high schools offer summer study abroad, like Spanish. Would that count as a college level credit course?
That's a good question. I guess I will say the answer depends, because if they are studying abroad and they're taking a class abroad, it depends if that class is offered at a college or university that has parity and communication with the college that student would be going to. So for example, like say you were offered a study abroad program and it let you take a 3-unit class at Oxford University in England. I know that that's a very reputable university that probably, if you were earning college credit, it could probably be transferred onto your college transcript wherever you ended up going if you go to college in the USA. However, it's going to depend, it's going to vary, depend on college versus college. So you're going to have to check with the colleges you're interested in to find out what international schools they would accept credits from.
Also, I lied. There's one more question that popped up. Someone asked, in general, do more colleges accept AP over IB?
As far as do they accept AP or IB, usually colleges do not have a preference. They love to see that a student's been involved in AP or they love to see a student's been involved in IB. I think if you want to really simplify it, AP is a program where you're offering tests like exams at the end of the year. And IB is more than that. It's a comprehensive program because you have to take you can't just take one IB course. You have to take a number of them. You have a research project, you have theory of knowledge if you're a full IB diploma. So that does, carry some weight. That does show some good things. But most college admissions officers I've talked to, they don't have a preference for AP is better than IB or IB is better than AP. They just like when students do anything that is kind of above and beyond just the minimum, and when they spend some extra time studying in an advanced way in certain subjects. So I would say that colleges don't have a preference, and most colleges I know of in the USA, their admissions offices look at both AP and IB. They accept both equally and would use both equally. So these are the different college systems, some examples of logos from our local ones like the California community colleges. And then of course we have the CSU system and the University of California. So these first 3 levels, these are all public. The California community colleges, sometimes they're called 2-year colleges. The CSUs and UCs, you can go all the way up to a bachelor's and beyond. And then for private or vocational colleges, some examples, local examples would be University of San Diego, Point Loma Nazarene, whereas one that's a little further north would be USC, the University of Southern California. So I want to go into each of these and just really briefly, I know I'm going to kind of fly through, and a reminder that this slide deck will be available on our website tomorrow, but I'm going to just kind of give you what is this kind of college and what are some of the benefits of this college and maybe some of the drawbacks. So I'm going to start with the community colleges. For community colleges, your basic requirement is first come, first served. Just fill out an application on time. If you're either 18 or if you have a high school diploma or equivalency, that's your only admissions requirement at a community college. You don't have to write an essay. You don't have to have a certain GPA. You don't have to have a certain test score. Community colleges are meant for everybody, and they are first come, first served. So you don't necessarily have to have been involved in extracurricular activities or community service or anything like that. Whereas if you want to start at a four-year university, they are very selective, and they are looking at, you know, your grades and sometimes additional factors like extracurriculars, jobs and leadership, essays, or personal insight questions. So with the community college system, there's more than 100 campuses. Some local ones that we see here, like Southwestern, Grossmont, Cuyamaca, City, Mesa. These are, they are going to be, there's always one that's close to you. The admissions process is not competitive. They have a free application. It is very affordable for California residents. They charge by the unit, so it depends if you take one class or two or three. But if you were to go full-time for 2 semesters for 1 year, the tuition, if you paid out of pocket, would be about $1,200 to $1,400 in that year, which is very affordable. However, they have something called the California Promise, which is basically free tuition for your freshman and sophomore years of college if you do it at a California community college. So if you're graduating from high school and you decide to go right to a community college and do your freshman and sophomore year there, as long as you fill out a FAFSA or a DREAM Act, regardless of how much income the parents make, you can get free tuition for your freshman and sophomore year of college at a community college, which is fantastic. What would then be the limitations? It sounds like community college is where it's at. It's basically free college, right? So some of the limitations would be that a lot of times the highest degree that you could earn would be an associate's degree, although there are a few programs that have bachelors at community colleges, like I think they're adding a bachelor's in cybersecurity in the San Diego Community College District. The other one is currently, in San Diego, we don't have any community colleges where you can live on campus. There's no dorms, but I was just at City College last week and they are building a 14-story building where they're going to have student housing. So they are going to begin having student housing at some community colleges. So definite benefits, also limitations. What if we look at the CSU system? The California state universities, there's 23 of them. Down here in California, in Southern California, we have San Diego State and California State University San Marcos in our North County. And you can see all the other ones all the way at the state to the furthest north, which is Humboldt State University. This is a traditional university setting. The tuition is much more. We're up to about $7,000 or $8,000 a year in tuition and fees, which notice that that's about 7 times as much as at a community college. And they are competitive for their admissions. They look at your A through G courses. You have to have at least a 2.5 GPA. They do not use the SAT and ACT anymore. They admit by major, and they will take you either as a freshman or if you're applying to transfer and finish your junior, senior year there. So what are the benefits and drawbacks of a CSU? There's going to be probably always one somewhere in your county. It's designed to select, I'd say, the top third of high school graduates. They do often give priority admission to students within their local service area who live close by. They're a public university and they are comparatively affordable. California residents, you get in-state tuition, where someone is coming from out of state or out of the country, they'll probably pay about 3 times as much at a CSU or a UC or a community college. The California state universities offer bachelor's degrees and higher. They also have graduate schools and graduate programs. They all have options to live on campus. If you go to Cal Maritime, you can even live on a boat. And so what are the limitations of Cal States? Sometimes they're competitive to get into, where they have majors that are very impacted, very difficult and competitive to get into. And of course, they are more expensive than a community college. All right, what about the next system, which is the UCs? There's only 10 of these. The farthest north is UC Davis. Of course, we are lucky to have UC San Diego down here, and you can see all the ones in between. Now, one of these you cannot go to right out of high school, and that's UC San Francisco. It's only a graduate level medical school, but all the others, Davis, Berkeley, Merced, Santa Cruz, Santa Barbara, LA, Riverside, Irvine, and San Diego, those all are, applications are open when you get into 12th grade, and you could start there as a freshman. So these, again, the tuition jumps, it's about twice annually what the CSUs are. So if the CSU is about $7,000 a year in tuition, the UCs are about $14,000 a year in tuition. I haven't talked about financial aid yet. We definitely will get to that in just a moment. But again, they are competitive as well. You have to have at least a 3.0 GPA minimum. They are no longer using the SAT or ACT, but they do look at your grades, your classes, your extracurriculars, if you've done leadership or sports or community service or held a job. They also ask you to answer some personal insight questions that are kind of like essays. And they also offer admissions both to freshmen and to junior level transfers. So benefits of a UC, options to live on campus, offer bachelor's degrees and above, very reputable, can be very competitive. Some of the limitations, capped majors, they definitely can't admit 100% of applicants, and they are the most expensive as far as a public university system in California. They're more expensive than the community colleges, more expensive than the CSUs. What about private colleges? So a private college means that they don't accept any tax money from the state of California. They're completely privately funded. And there's good and bad things about that. It means they sometimes can have beautiful campuses, small campuses, special programs, really small class sizes, really offer amazing things. On the kind of challenging side of that is that private colleges usually have some of the highest tuitions. They can be very, very expensive. Because they're private, they vary. They can ask for whatever they want to on an application. Common App, the commonapp.org is a common application that many different private universities use. So you can just fill out one application basically and do an essay and then say, well, I want this to go to USD or Stanford or, you know, whatever, wherever you want it to go. Some local private colleges would include like University of San Diego, Point Loma Nazarene, National University, which is focused a lot on working professionals, Alliant International University, and then further north, of course, we have like Stanford, USC, Loyola Marymount, Occidental, schools like that. Okay, so benefits of a private college, they usually don't charge out of state tuition. The tuition is the same for every student because they're not public, they're private. They offer bachelor's, master's, and beyond. They usually have options to live on campus. They tend to be smaller, have smaller class sizes, and they tend to have the largest financial aid packages. On the limitation side, the admissions to get in could be extremely competitive, and also they are the most expensive of the college systems. And two more quick ones that I want to go over is vocational and technical schools. Say that you want to do something hands-on, you want something where the admissions is not competitive, you can start that college right away and you can just get training in your field. You're like, I don't need to take every language and history and humanities and math, and so I just want to take the things that I need to take to get into my job. There are vocational and technical institutes, and I'll give some examples. FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, the Paul Mitchell School, the Concord Career Institute. These don't give typical associate's or bachelor's degrees, but they usually give some kind of degree or certificate for vocational, for the work program that you would like to do. Some benefits of these is that usually you don't have to have any particular test score or grade GPA to get in. You can often start anytime you want. You can earn a certificate in a short amount of time. They're flexible around a work schedule. Some of them have really good internship opportunities and job placements. On the negative side, they can be pricey. You might get the same program offered at a community college, but for a lot less. And sometimes if they say they're giving you an associate degree, if you're trying to use that associate degree to transfer to a university, it might or might not work. So check with them to see if it's an associate that transfers. I also tell people to be cautious about for-profit colleges. If a college is a business and only a business and they are for-profit, just like any business, they can suddenly shut their doors even if you're in the middle of getting your degree. That's not going to happen at a public institution. So I'll give you an example that's happened right here in San Diego at the Art Institute, at Brightwood College, at Coleman University, at ITT Tech. Those for-profit colleges all had to kind of abruptly close. So if a college tells you it doesn't use Cal Grants or it doesn't accept the FAFSA, that's a bit of a red flag for me. And I would say to be cautious about that college. And then if you want to go out of state, it does depend if it's public or private. If it's public, you might have to pay out of state tuition. So consider that. If it's private, it might be the same. And sometimes out-of-state colleges, they require an additional financial aid application in addition to the FAFSA called the CSS profile. So examples of universities that require you to fill out a profile in addition to the FAFSA are like MIT, NYU, Harvard, Stanford, Caltech, USC. They all require the CSS profile. Okay, let's get into money. And I'm going to try to have us end by 7 o'clock. So I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. But if we just look at the numbers, if we're comparing estimated college tuition costs per year, so this is for 1 year of tuition. This does not count books. It does not count rent and food and all the other things that are a part of college. This just shows you tuition. At a community college, the average for 1 year of school is about $1,400 if you're paying out of pocket. Remember, though, the California colleges do have the promise, which would make that free. So it would basically be $0 tuition for your freshman, sophomore year, which is a pretty awesome deal. If you were going to start at a CSU, like CSU San Marcos, San Diego State, about $7,000 to $8,000 a year is the approximate annual tuition. UCs were up to more like $14,000, $15,000 a year. I'm not giving exact dollar amounts. I'm just giving kind of a rough approximation. Now, if you're looking at a private school like MIT, Harvard, Yale, Stanford, usually most of those are going to be $40,000 a year and above in tuition and fees. Okay. So the total cost of attendance is not just tuition and fees. Of course, it's also things like books and supplies, miscellaneous expenses, like you probably want a cell phone, you probably want Wi-Fi, you probably need to buy clothes, transportation, health expenses, room and board, which means rent and food. So the annual cost, even though the only part that's really associated with colleges is books and supplies and tuition and fees, all the other things you'd have to pay for just in life in general, you have to have food and rent and transportation and all those things anyway, but all of it becomes part of a cost of attendance. So how do you pay that cost? It seems outlandish. It seems crazy that anyone could possibly put together that much money every year to go to college. So that's kind of where financial aid comes in. So the real question is not just how much does college cost? That's important, and that's why I'm showing you these numbers, but how much financial aid can you expect to receive versus how much would you have to pay out of pocket? So I want to offer you a couple of resources. CalSOAP has 2 really good websites. We have our calsoapsandiego.org website that has a scholarship information section. And also we have something called the virtual classroom at calsoapvirtualclassroom.com that has a scholarship section. So if you want to start looking right now into what scholarships are going to be available for my student when they're ready to go to college, CalSOAP is a really big, we try to offer a lot of scholarship information and scholarship resources. The FAFSA is changing this coming year. Big, big, big changes, the more than it's ever changed since 1997 when it first went online. The EFC, which they've been using expected family contribution forever, they're going to stop using that term and they're going to start calling it SAI or Student Aid Index. So by the time your students are in college, things will be a little bit different. Now, the SAI or the EFC, that does not vary. That's the same dollar amount, regardless of what college you attend. The cost of attendance is what varies from college to college, mostly because of the difference in tuition and fees. So there is a form called the FAFSA or the California Dream Act, and nearly everyone qualifies for something. So when you get to be a 12th grader, I'm going to strongly encourage all students to fill out either a FAFSA or a Dream Act. If the student, regardless of the parent's status, if the student is a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, they will fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, and they'll fill it out online. You cannot do that until 12th grade. If the student is in 12th grade, but they don't have a social security number, they might be considered an AB 540 student or undocumented, then they would fill out a very similar application, but it's called the California Dream application. Really, the only difference in these two is that if you fill out the FAFSA, you might be eligible for both federal and state money, whereas the California Dream Act, you're only eligible for state money within the state of California, so to go to a college in California. But I highly encourage everyone to fill it out, even if you think, parents, my income is too high, I'm not going to get offered anything. The college's financial aid offices still want to know your EFC or SAI before they can award their own institutional aid. So their own scholarships, even that are merit-based, can a lot of times still require a FAFSA to be filled out. So don't worry about, but I make too much money, I'm not going to get anything, or I'll only be offered a loan and I'm not going to take one. And that's okay if you don't take a loan, that's fine. But the College Financial Aid Office, it's still, and sometimes even other scholarship applications require you to have filled out a FAFSA. For example, the San Diego Foundation, their scholarship with their common application was due today, actually, for seniors. And they require you, just to fill out their scholarship application, you have to have also filled out a FAFSA or DREAM Act before you turn in their scholarship application. So consider it's a really important form. Usually it opens October 1st. We hear it might be later this year. It might be January 1st, but it's due by March 2nd. Of your 12th grade year, and then you're going to resubmit it once a year while the student attends college. Brianna is at UC San Diego. She's a senior. She has filled out the FAFSA, I think, every year for many years of college, and she can attest to that. Once you fill it out, the college you want to go to will give you back a financial aid package. They'll say, if you qualify for any Pell Grants, any work study, any loans, they will let you know what you qualify for. If you're going to go to college in California, they may also say, oh, you also qualify for a Cal Grant A or a Cal Grant B or C, or maybe DREAM Act money. Or if you're going to a CSU or UC, you might qualify for the middle class scholarship, which is some money specifically toward tuition at a UC or a CSU. Or maybe if you were a foster youth, you might get offered the Chafee grant. And then that college, that institution might have its own aid and scholarships, just like the community colleges have the Promise Scholarship, just like UCs have something called the Blue and Gold, which can cover tuition if your annual income is under $80,000 a year. So all of that will come together in one package that they send you. And then based on that package, you can decide, yes, this is a good deal, I want to go here, or no, I'm going to have to pay too much out of pocket and I just can't afford this college. But it will all be packaged together in one statement or one letter. This is how the average family in America pays for college. You can see that student income and savings and parent income and savings is nearly half of that. But notice that yellow piece that says grants and scholarship, that's only a fourth. We want to expand that. We want you to apply for as much financial aid, as many scholarships as possible, so that you don't have to borrow or you don't have to save as much for college. A couple things that you can do to start planning for college right now is to put your money in something like a 529 savings plan so that it is tax deferred and eventually tax exempt. You can also go to studentaid.gov. They have an aid estimator section where you're not filling out a real FAFSA, you're filling out a fake one. You don't have to use your name or anything. You could just put in like whatever income you have a year, and they'll give you an estimate of what your future aid package might look like based on your income right now. Students, what you can do now is research careers and majors in colleges. Parents, an important thing for you to do is make sure that you file your taxes each year. The FAFSA is going to ask for your tax ID number. And also parents are going to have an email address that's different than their student's email address in order to do the FAFSA or DREAM Act. It's also time to become familiar with scholarships and get ready once you're a senior to fill out that FAFSA. So how do scholarships work? If all the aid you're getting, if you're getting any aid from the federal government, the state government, and your college, if that all does not equal the cost of attendance, scholarships are a great way to make up the difference. Most scholarships are due in grade 12, although some scholarships are open to younger students, but I will say the majority are for grade 12 students. Scholarship depend based on who's giving the money. So some are based on financial needs, some are based on student achievement, some are based on whatever other factors the donor requests. There's one called the Stuck at Prom Scholarship where you make your prom dress or prom tuxedo out of duct tape and take a picture, and they have a contest for who wins that. So lots of crazy scholarships out there. Most scholarships are not paid as a check to the family or the student. They're paid directly to the student's college's financial aid office, who then disperses the money to the student. Some are renewable annually, which is awesome. Some are not, they're one time only. You can accept and use multiple different scholarships simultaneously. I know students who have gotten 5, 6, 7, 10 different scholarships and used them all at the same college. So you can use and accept multiple different scholarships. And most colleges will allow their aid to cover all the way up to the cost of attendance, maybe not to exceed that amount. Are there scholarships for younger students? We do have a new one called Cal Kids in the state of California. And to be eligible, you have to be low income, a public school student in grade 1 through 12, but they do give you up to $1,500 in free money for college. So if you go to the Cal Kids website, just check it out and see if by chance there's scholarship money waiting there for you. So that is one that might be accessible for younger students. And there's a couple more I want to point out that maybe by the time at least you're a sophomore in high school. Big Future Scholarships is a great one. And sometimes instead of being called a scholarship, there are things that are open to younger students like essay contests, art contests, video contests, junior challenge science contest. So look for things that are phrased as contests, not just scholarships. And sometimes that's sometimes open to younger students, maybe like from age 13 and above. FastWeb is another great scholarship search resource. Okay, in terms of loans, how do loans work and should you take one? A college loan means you borrow money to go to college. I want you to know that if you're offered a loan, you can always decline. Just because you're offered it does not mean you have to take it. College loans from the government tend to be lower interest, but you can take a loan from a friend, a credit union, a bank, a private institution, and you don't have to begin making monthly payments until 6 months after finishing college. There's something called the PLUS, and instead of being in the student's name, this is a parent loan for undergraduate students. So the loan is in the parent's name and on the parent's credit, and then parents, you're of course giving that money to the student to go to college, but there are loans in the student's names, or there could be a PLUS loan in the parent's name. My recommendation is always use and find all the grants, all the work study, all the scholarships, all the savings you can before you consider a loan as an option. And if you do take a loan, I recommend you take the one with the lowest interest, whether that's through FAFSA or a bank or a credit union. And if your future career is not lucrative, it's not a big money maker, consider starting at a community college or attending whatever college is most affordable to you where you're paying the least out of pocket. Okay, I'm going to kind of skip senior year because that's still a ways away for most of us. But I do want to, oh yes, go ahead.
Sorry, there's just a really interesting question that I want to make sure is addressed. Someone asked, can you talk about CalVet benefits if someone's father is a disabled veteran?
Yes.
They said that they heard that would provide free state tuition.
Yes, so if you go to calvet.org, if a parent was a service member who either died in the line of duty or was disabled in the line of duty, that means that their dependents are entitled to free tuition at a public institution. So that would be like at a California community college, at a CSU, or at a UC, but it depends on there's different benefits levels depending on, for example, the level of disability of the veteran. However, that it's not necessarily true for all private colleges, but for public colleges in California, that is true. So if a parent is a military veteran who was disabled in the line of duty, go to calvet.org and find out which benefits your student will qualify for. That question will also always be on a college application, like, are you the dependent of a military veteran? And you want to make sure to answer correctly to that so that they can, set up those resources for free tuition. It doesn't mean absolutely everything is free in the cost of attendance, but as far as tuition at a public institution, that will usually be free if the parent was deceased or disabled in the line of duty. Yes. Okay, so these are some helpful resources. CalSoap San Diego, our website and our virtual classroom. CA Career Zone is another one I mentioned that's great. CaliforniaColleges.edu, especially if you're considering going to college anywhere in the state of California. Workforce.org is the San Diego one about jobs and industries in San Diego. Big Future, the College Board Big Future website is excellent for free research. Cal Kids is the one where you can find out if you can get a scholarship of up to $1,500 starting now in a savings account. And if you want to research different majors, mymajors.com is a really good one as well. All right. So reminder, please follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram at CalSoap San Diego. And also this tomorrow on our website, calsoapsandiego.org, we have a webinar and blog section where we'll be posting this webinar, a link to it, and also a link to the slide deck so you can have access to the slides. All right. And then I want to go ahead and invite anyone who needs to leave. You're welcome to go ahead and leave the call right now, but we will stay on a little while so that if there are further things in the Q&A, or if anybody even wants to put anything in the chat, I'll open up the chat now for questions. So Brianna, if you can continue asking me anything you see in the Q&A.
Yes, there is a question. I'm not quite familiar with the acronym. What about JMUN? That's the question that they asked.
I'm actually not familiar with that either. Junior Model UN. I don't know enough. If that's what it is, I'm not familiar enough to answer questions about it, unfortunately. Sorry.
There's another question. Someone asked, does 529 cover other things besides tuition?
Yes, whatever money you put into a 529, first of all, that's your money, and you can spend it on whatever you want. But in order for it to be tax exempt, it has to be spent on college expenses. But guess what is a college expense? Rent, food, car, health insurance, computer, like all those things that you would normally have to have in life. That's something you need in college too. And so, yes, it can be used for expenses other than tuition, as long as it's for a student who's enrolled in college. Yes, it can be used for things other than just college tuition.
Another person asked in the chat if you could speak about community colleges around East Village High and any comments or thoughts about what that might entail.
Yes. So there are certain colleges that have, certain high schools that have certain really strong relationships with local community colleges. East Village High is one of them. It's basically on the San Diego City College campus. Another one is Kearney High, because they're right there by the Mesa College campus. And they have a lot of things where they have early diploma programs where sometimes students graduate as a senior. Instead of waiting till June, they have enough credits to graduate by like January. And a lot of times they have a lot of dual credit classes where they're taking either classes at that community college, or that community college is providing a professor on the high school campus, where these students are basically earning a lot of college credit at a really early age. I would say that if you're interested, these are an excellent option for students who are really motivated and good independent workers. So when you're at some place like East Village, there is a ton of support in terms of like counseling support. But you have to be ready for colleges that are college level rigor, and you have to be ready to act and do homework and be in class the way a college student would be. So if you feel like you have that level of maturity and you have that level of academic skill, and you're like, hey, I'm ready for harder classes, then I think that those can be really good options, because you can, A, you could graduate early, or B, you could be earning, college units, college credits earlier than maybe other people would be.
I answered this question in the Q&A earlier, but I wanted you to speak on it a bit more as well.
Okay.
Someone asked, do UCs offer any guarantee if a student is in the top 10% of their school? And I mentioned TAG, but I also wanted you to maybe speak to this for any students who are in their higher percentile for their high schools.
Yes. So the UCs have two different paths to admission. And one is with just your regular application and seeing if you qualify competitively based on GPA and all that. But there's something called ELC, or eligibility in the local context. And what that means is, yes, if you are in the top, I do want to say it's 9 or 10% of your graduating high school class based on GPA rank. Sometimes, as long as you have like all the A through G qualifications and nothing to disqualify you, like no D's and F's, you might be admissible through eligibility in the local context. And if you are, the UCs will contact you, as if you've applied to them as a senior, they'll contact you your 12th grade year, and they'll say, hey, you're eligible, via ELC, and you definitely have a spot reserved for you at a UC campus. It might not be your number one UC choice. It might, like if your number one choice is UC Berkeley, that's a very competitive campus to get into. So they might offer you admission at UC Merced, but they will say, if you're in that top percentile of your high school graduating class, you might be admissible from eligibility in the local context. And if that does apply to you, they'll automatically send you notification of that in your 12th grade year.
There's another question that just appeared right now. It says, how many years of foreign language are required for high school graduation and university admission? Is LOTE test, does it cover all of it, or do we need to take an extra year in high school?
So what's required as far as high school graduation would be 2 years of a language other than English. It doesn't have to be in high school. Like I said, some people take Spanish 1, 2 in 8th grade, and then they're taking Spanish 3, 4 in 9th grade. So they're done at the end of 9th grade as far as a high school graduation requirement. The UCs, like universities like the UCs, they will say 2 years of a foreign language is required, but 3 years is recommended. So if you can take a 3rd year, I do recommend that, and maybe a 4th year if you're really passionate about that, like an AP, Spanish or something like that. But as far as what is required to graduate high school, most high schools have a requirement of 2 years, and the UCs have a requirement of 2 years, but a recommendation of 3. The percent of California locals getting into UCs versus foreigners and the average GPA for UCs. Okay, so there's actually new statistics on that all the time. I know that UC San Diego, I believe, is the campus that has admitted the most California residents of any other UC for this cycle, interestingly. But what you'd have to do is go to the UC University of California.edu website, and they do have a data center. And so you would have to, you could look up the average, what you would do is look up something called the freshman profile. And that's for students that are entering as freshmen, not as junior transfers, but it'll say the average freshman at UC has had a 4.2 GPA in high school, and this is an average AP number of AP classes, or this was their average GPA. And of course it's going to change based on major, based on the UC, but you'd have to actually go directly to those UC websites. But they do have a data area, and they do have statistics on that you could find out what percentage of undergraduates that are enrolled are international versus California, or are US versus international. They have all those statistics on the UC website, universityofcalifornia.edu. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and what I'm gonna do now is just put my email address in the chat. It is kkwhitaker@ucsd.edu, so that if anybody would like to ask me a question later on, they are welcome to email me, and I'll try to get those resources to you. So if you shoot me an email and ask me your question, I will do my best to research and get back to you. I appreciate everybody coming. Brianna, I appreciate you spending the time. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar for tonight. So good night, everybody. Thank you.